how do you define QoE, QoS? I'm going to ask Abdul to step in on this. Abdul, how do you define it?
Thank you, Alan. Great to be here. There are lots of definitions of QoE, QoS, and I'm sure that if you ask the panelists here about the definitions, they'll describe their own definition of it. In my view, at the end of the day, what matters is what the human visual system is experiencing, what the human is getting on the other side of the streaming platform, whether it's a live or a file-based streaming platform. And that includes a number of elements that come together in putting that experience. You obviously have the content creation part in terms of how that is done. You have the content delivery part in terms of are enough number of bits in the right order and sequence in the right format getting there to the device that is playing it, which is what we typically call quality of service, in my view. And then you have the actual pixels that are being put on the screen and the device is behaving as expected and representing IMAX as creator intended. And that, as perceived by a human on the other side, is the viewer experience. So in my view, that final experience that a human is getting and perceiving and the satisfaction level that encompasses all of the above is the QoE.
Right, I could see that. You're saying a number of different variables there, and when you come down to the exact point of what is QoE, thank you for rounding it up and bringing it to that point. Anyone else have an opinion on that as far as bringing it to bear? Jason?
I agree with Abdul, right? So, QoE is really the measurement of how people are perceiving the experience of watching the video. There's lots of metrics there to measure that. Quality of services is definitely something, that is more related to specific metrics that you're setting or specific KPIs you're setting for how the network performs in delivering that experience. And then, measuring against those, that expected level of performance. So there's definitely lots of different definitions, but I think Abdul kind of nailed it when it came down to QoE is really about the visual aspect, how people are perceiving it.
Right, and as far as the QoS is what delivers the QoE. When things are working well and how they're being performed, the experience is well and good. Now, is that different between live and on demand? We're talking here today about the aspects of it's a critical role in live streaming. So obviously, there's a difference between live and on demand contained. Sean, you're dealing with YouTube right now, and so in this particular instance, what's your opinion about that?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think at the end of the day, the QoE metrics that we measure from an end user perspective are more or less the same. But in a live workflow, there are more QoS elements and more potential breaking points. And therefore, I think it's personally more important to measure in real time anyways, the QoE. And I would just take a step back and say, at YouTube, which obviously is majority VOD platform, I am focused on, signal acquisition and live OTT. So that is always the angle that I'll take when, sort of talking about QoS, what types of metrics matter to us, how we think about the end-to-end signal chain. It's always in the context of a live workflow. That's kind of my background. The only thing I could say that's I don't know if it's necessarily different or should be different, but I feel in VOD workflows we not necessarily over index, but relative to live, index more heavily on perceptual quality metrics. A, because it's easier to compute, and B, there's a lot more, some might disagree, but I would argue, creative intent that in a Hollywood movie than maybe a sports production, that you want to maintain the integrity of the pixels and the way that they're displayed on your screens and devices. And I think right now there's a trend in the industry to bring that same level of rigor of the actual bit flow and pixel quality monitoring to the live workflows.